What's going on, guys? Planet4 here to bring you guys a brand new video. Today we're here with who and what did you do?
My name is Allen Vera, and I got 5th place at the State Weird Gaming Remote Regional with For Hire.
For Hire. Wow, man, let's see that profile.
Alright, so I'm gonna do it by levels because it explains some stuff. So
yeah,
first it's 3 copies of Philo, the level 1. What she does is all the level 4 lower For Hire have an effect to summon level 1 from hand, and then a secondary effect. Hers is I can revive a For Hire from the graveyard in defense position, and then when it leaves field, it gets put on the bottom. She's really good for extension and follow-up as well. Also, sometimes in a pinch, you can link summon her. You normal summon her or link summon off with her into a link Karibo. Revive her if you have Mayhem in hand, then use it to make Donner, which allows you to extend more potentially. After that, there's 3 copies of Rex. Rex is really good. On summon, it's the only one that does not summon a level from hand, but on summon, it searches the deck for higher spell trap, which is Mayhem, which is an extender from Monster Reborn, or the newer one, Rookie, which lets you tribute any monster on the field to summon any monster on my field to summon a for hire from the deck with 1 level lower or higher than that monster. Also has a really good grave effect to banish yourself from graveyard to target a for hire card in the graveyard and I add it to hand, or if it's a monster I can choose to special summon it onto the field as well. This lets me trigger a lot of stuff which is really important, like Dampa effect on the opponent's turn, which will trigger Folgo to draw 1 card, usually 3 though due to its bonus effect. Then it's 1 copy of Dampa, the one that, this is one of the main interaction pieces. It's really good. Being a level 2 lets me use Sprite card as an extra deck to get to it, and its effect is the summon effect, and then if another for special summon, I can trigger 1 face-up card on the field, so both sides, which is actually kind of relevant sometimes, and blow it up. Then there's Recon, same exact thing, but targets face downs. Another really good card, usually mostly useful in grinds when the opponents are setting stuff sometimes, or back row matchups, but it's still worth it for sure. Also just having another name to start off combos, which is good. 3 copies of Beat. This is probably one of the best ones in the main deck. That can be argued now because Rex is genuinely amazing, but Beat has the effect to when another for hire special summon, he wrote us for any for hire monster. He's really good, and I think he's like the face of the deck pretty much. He's really good.
Yeah.
And then the last level 4 lower is Seal. He's alright. He's a dark, which is kind of bad, but the thing that makes him worth it is he's another name, and also he has an effect where one of the for hire is special that can recur any for hire monster in my graveyard and add it to the hand, which is good for follow-up, or having cards to use for my negators, because they have to pitch it for hire specifically. Then it's Dyna. Dyna's really good into Tearlament and a lot of other graveyard-centric strategies, because on summon he DD Crows cards in the opponent's graveyard up to the number of for hires I control. So at minimum 1, sometimes 3 or 4, which is really good against Tearlaments, especially since it can chain Rex or Mayhem to a Tearlament mill effect, or any mill effect against that deck, and then Dyna will trigger in a new chain to DD Crow when they're activating their own tiers, and since they play a priority usually, I'll be able to do this last so that it would not resolve.
Happy to see you're playing that. I love that card in Duel Links. Card's insane.
Cracked.
Yeah.
Also, the protection effect came up in the tournament because my opponent couldn't Magnemute into my Folgo. Besides that, there's 1 Wiz. On summon, cheeses in time, gains life points up to number 500 for every other for hire excluding itself. Won me my first round actually. Really good card. Also, it's a spell trap negate by pitching it for hire, which is really good because something I did in one of my matches was against Wanderies. I had Raphael on field, tagged it out into Wiz by tributing it with Rookie, and then he couldn't use Evenly, which he had in his hand, and it was able to protect my board, and I was able to win off of it. After that, there's 2 copies of Raphael. Raphael is like another cornerstone of the deck. On summon, he has a really good effect to excavate cards, excluding up to the number for hires I have on field, excluding itself. So usually it'll excavate 2 to 4. And it's really good because it can add any one of those cards to hand. So it adds hand traps, it adds extenders, adds like board wipe cards if I side those in, adds equalizers, adds floodgates. It's amazing. And has an effect to pitch it for hire to negate activation of an opponent's monster effect. Doesn't destroy, so it's not the best, but it's definitely really good. The new support made it way better because I can do the excavate effect twice, once on my turn, once on the opponent's turn when I summon it, because usually the end board will have Folgo, it'll have Folgo, Elf, IP, and Dampa in the graveyard along with Raphael and Rex, so I go summon Dampa with Elf, then revive Raphael with Rex to have a pop and an excavate into a monster negate. Those are the for hire monsters, and then after that I have my hand traps that I was playing. I was playing a lot of hand traps, as I believe this format it's kind of mandatory if it's not a deck that can combo off incredibly hard, like to play a ton of hand traps, and also they're just good in general. So I played Triple Magnemute. It's a good card. It can actually come out a lot of times since The for hires aren't archetype specific in what they in how to summon them. It's just using monsters with different types and getting a dragon and any other for hire is a nice way to jumpstart combos. I can go normal Philo, make Link Karibo, get another body, get Link Karibo in the grave, and then use Magnitude for extension. Same thing with Druid Swarm, and same thing with Zarnier. These are all just really good against Terrell elements as well, and just other decks that use lighter dark monsters to get bodies on board for interaction. Druid Swarm is especially strong. Like sometimes I'll just Magnitude on my own turn, search a Druid Swarm and end phase, so on my opponent's turn I have an IP and Druid Swarm for a double send, which is really powerful if I go into Unicorn. Or I can make an Appaloosa for a single send and still have an Appaloosa with 4 negates, which is just really good. Besides that, I also play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is kind of ubiquitous. It can hit basically any relevant deck in the game. It's a phenomenal card. Not as good right now, but I still think definitely worth it, given my deck is able to draw into multiple hand traps usually. So I'll just have multiple ways to stop cards. 2 Ghost Spell. This is really relevant because it hits Terrell element effects, hits a lot of just other graveyard shenanigans cards, but the most important thing in my eye is it can defend my combo, because if my opponent tries to Magnemute or Bestial my Raphael, which is one of the key pieces of my combo on opponent's turn, I can Ghost Spell to stop that, get my thing on, and have all my board live. I'll do it for the monster hand traps. Besides that, we have the spell traps themselves. I play 3 copies of Rookie for Hire. I already explained this a little bit. Quick effect, tribute for hire, tribute any monster to summon with a level to summon it for hire with 1 up or down. And quick effects allows me to dodge removal, dodge imperm, which is really relevant, dodge a lot of stuff like that. And I can do it on opponent's turn as well, which is relevant. 2 copies of Mayhem. It's a Monster Reborn. A decent amount of people play 1, but I prefer 2 because it's nice not having to commit searches to it. It's nice to just be able to summon on the opponent's turn as well with it. Being a quick effect is really good. And besides that, I also have 1 Rhoda. Rhoda allows me to search the deck for a warrior monster, which is Beat. Beat's one of the main play starters, so I think it's worth it. Then 1 for 1. 1 for 1 allows me to get certain cards I want in graveyard into the graveyard, and also summons Philo, which is another key extender. Something good is if I open a for hire, let's say I open a for hire and 1 random card and nothing else. I can, when I go 1 for 1 for a random card, summon Philo, summon the for hire, and if the random card was another for hire, I can revive with Philo, which is an instant Folgo or an instant way to get into a lot of other stuff. Then there's Triple Prosperity, lets me dig for hand traps, lets me dig for board breakers going second, lets me dig for side cards like Floodgates, like Anti-Spell, and lets me dig for starters or extenders. Really good card. Then 3 Imperm. Imperm's just another hand trap to have. I can set it going first, which is really nice. It's kind of not too great to draw with Volgo, but I still think it's worth it. Since it's not a monster, it makes it less susceptible to stuff. It's harder to stop. I definitely think it's worth it, and that does it for the main deck. After that, I have my extra deck, which would start off with 1 copy of Almirage. Almirage is good because I can normal summon a Rex, link it off, or any of the other 1000 attack lower ones, which is really good because it lets me it lets bad hands play, which is really good because without it, I would have lost games, and I think it's worth it. Well, Link Karibo, same exact thing as Almirage, but it being a dark makes it really important sometimes. It can also make it detrimental. My opponent has a Bestial, but it makes dead hands able to combo, which is good. Then there's 1 IP. IP is really good. It's one of the main things I know on the board. Just a great card. Lets me excel Linkro into stuff like Unicorn or Appaloosa or Underworld Goddess, or even a for hire. If I have no other ways to summon a for hire, I can even go into a second Donner to trigger my for hire as a field, which is really relevant. Then there's 1 Elf. Elf is a good card. I really like it a lot. It's one of the other things that I end on typically because it lets me get out my level 2s. If I already have a Dampa on grave, I can summon Dampa on field. I can summon another Rex from grave to get his on search effect, and then IP the way into graveyard and use his banish it at the same turn. Wait, no, I think Rex is a hard once per turn. Just ignore that. On one of its effects. Then there's Sprint. Sprint is really good. It lets me Foolish Burial level 2. Usually Rex to do another one on my opponent's turn, or I can Foolish Dampa if I haven't already. And its bounce effects can come up sometimes because sometimes I'll end on just this and Gigantic. So I'll have another piece of interaction on my opponent's turn. The Dark Charmer, good cards. Dark monsters are ubiquitous right now. Steals Bestial, so trigger Bestial effects. I can steal a lot of stuff with it. It's really nice. 2 Donner. Donner's really good. It's a Diamond Dire Wolf, but also I can tribute a monster, or if I tribute a Link monster, I can summon 2 for hires from the graveyard or hand. Does not target as well, so it plays around certain targeted removal from graveyard. and kind of makes my opponent have to guess what I'm going to summon. If I tribute a non-link monster, I can only summon one, but you almost always tribute itself just to trigger other for higher names that you haven't already triggered. Really good card. Then there's 2 copies of Fulgo, Justice for Hire. On summon, summons a for hire monster from the deck that's not the type used for its summon, because it uses 3 different monsters with different types. Also, if a card an opponent controls is destroyed, I can draw 1 card. Then if I have 3 or more for hires on the field, I draw 2 additional cards. So usually the play is ending on this, the IP, the Elf, along with a way to get Dampa and Raphael on field. So Dampa summons first, and summon Raphael, Raphael excavates, and Dampa pops a card. And so that's already a monster destruction, which is disruption. Monster that excavates for hand traps, and is also a monster negate. And a card that draws 3 to draw into more hand traps or follow-up plays. Amazing card, honestly. I had a game where I drew 9 cards with it, and my opponent just conceded because I was just overflowing with card advantage. Then there's Nightmare Unicorn, IP target, just you can make it in general on my own turn, out stuff, good card. And then usually it segues into Axis Tucker. It's the premier OTK card, really strong. This and Raphael is already enough for game, which makes it really nice into clear boards. Then there's Appaloosa, another IP target, really good. Just don't make it too often. I don't typically make it too often because there's a lot of stuff that uses spell traps sometimes, but when I do make it, it usually wins me the game. Underworld Goddess just removes anything I need to. Really good card. Also, the summon from Graveyard effect can be relevant against stuff like Kikalos. And having on summon Blanket Negate for monsters is really sweet. And then lastly, Gigantic Sprite. Just another thing to get any level 2s I don't already have out of the deck and into my graveyard or onto the field. Usually the end play gets this on board and then like links off whatever I summon into the IP, and then I'll use whatever I summon, usually being Rex on the opponent's turn, to banish the summon Raphael. Then lastly we have the side deck, nothing too crazy. DD Crow, post-siding I'll have like 11 different ways to stop Sphere effects in graveyard and just other grave effects against Terror Element, good card. 3 Cyclone, good out Floodgates going second, About Grow going first, I can set into back row decks, so just like decks like Terror Element hit the field spell, it's relevant, I like it. 3 Dark Ruler, just good card, Blanket Negation, and they can't interact with it usually, really good card. 3 Anti-Spell, nice Floodgate to have, should be gone honestly, but it helped me win games. Really strong card, I can dig for it with Raphael and Prosperity, worth it. And then 3 Evenly. Evenly is just amazing to board break with. If I open Dark Ruler Evenly, it usually resolves and it's insane. Honestly, just insane card. And that'll do it for the deck profile. This deck performed really well. I went 5-1 with it, and I'm really happy with how I did. Nothing too spicy. I think it's a pretty standard list, but honestly, I'm just incredibly happy with how I performed. And that'll be it.
Alright, shoutouts, bro.
I want to shout out Top Toad Gaming. It's the little team I play with. They're really nice. There's a lot of nice people in there. I want to shout out my friends like Lars, he's cool. I want to shout out Croco Nana. I had this right next to me because it's like a good luck charm I've had for 3 years. And yeah, that's really it.
Alright, thank you, bro. Congrats.